It doesn't matter how good your product is if nobody sees it. The brutal truth is the best product doesn't always win. The best known product wins. If I could go back in my career and change one thing, I would have studied marketing and not business management and finance, because that is the biggest mistake I ever made, was not starting all of my businesses with market research to get in front of the right client. This conversation today is with Brandon Bateman over at Bateman Collective. Now, he is one of the smartest guys I've ever met in this space, and he did what I should have done, which was go into marketing and know how to spend my money like this. We have a fascinating conversation that's basically talking about Google and SEO, and I hope you absolutely love the conversation and that you learn a lot.
So Google will have about you, usually about 10,000 or more data points per user. And that's going to include things like, what is that search that you just made? Online marketing in some ways works pretty similarly. I would say with a lot of marketing channels that are common in the space, like direct mail, cold calling, texting, you're starting with the property and you're looking at all the data and you're trying to find data that's predictive of somebody being one of those edge case deals that will sell for less than what it could be worth to you. And those are things like, are they an absentee owner? Are they going through a divorce? Is the property in probate? All that stuff that you mentioned, those are indications where if those things are happening, it's more likely that this person's in this situation where they're willing to sell their house for a discount. So online is a little bit different, because offline, what you're kind of hoping is you're hoping all those things together might be predictive of this person being a motivated seller. But search engine marketing, which is our favorite kind of marketing that we do, it works a little bit differently in the sense that you kind of already know that somebody owns a house and you already know that they have this intent to sell it. So with all that other stuff, you're just kind of hoping, right? You're saying, oh, this person's going through a divorce. I'm going to hope that they want to sell the property. Versus what is more predictive of the fact that somebody's going to sell their property for cash than them searching into Google, how to sell my property for cash? It's super predictive, right? Like, you could look at me and you could say, oh, this guy, I feel like he's going to travel to California soon because he's like about this age and because he has this haircut and because he tends to do these things and he likes this, and that's going to be predictive. But what's more predictive than that is if I go onto Google and I search flights from Salt Lake City to California.
Yeah.
That's intent, right? Because I'm saying like what I'm thinking. And that's why if you look at Google, it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And it's built off of that one concept. Do they have lots of other products? Absolutely. But where does the vast, vast majority of their revenue come from? It comes from search ads, which is just because in a search engine is where people basically say what they intend to do, which is in a way a lot more valuable than all those other things combined, because it's incredibly, incredibly predictive of the fact that somebody's going to sell their house. I don't think it's debated ever that the leads you can get through a channel like Google are really high quality. What is debated is, are they worth what they cost? Because while these leads are really high quality, they also go for a lot of money, and people know they go for a lot of money. And because of that, if anything, people are finding good leads that they just feel like they're paying way too much money for. So that's where the game is, like what you mentioned. How do we make sure that we're paying the right amount for these things? And that's where the game of expert ad management starts. And I'll give you 2 tips that are pretty influential. The first one is this kind of advertising, it's pay-per-click marketing. You may have heard it referred to as PPC. PPC stands for pay-per-click. Now, the reason this is important is a lot of people look at it because their marketers will tell them like, hey, you're paying $300 a lead, $400 a lead. But it's not like every time you get a lead, you pay Google $300, $400. It's usually more like every time you get a click, you pay Google $50. And every time one of those clicks turns into a lead, you don't necessarily pay any more for that. It's just you're playing a numbers game. You know a certain percentage of your clicks are going to convert to leads. So that's where people, what they leave on the table a lot of the time is they do a good job buying clicks, but they don't do a really good job converting those clicks into leads. And a click for somebody who like searched the right thing and visits your website and then doesn't actually fill out the form is not actually very valuable to you at all. Could they come back one day? They could, right? But remembering that it's pay-per-click marketing, you need to have a really high conversion rate on your landing page to make that worth it. And we have it happen for our clients all the time where we can increase their results by 20% just by changing some things on the page where the traffic goes to. And when you change those things, it just tends to convert significantly better. And all that's like really simple. I'll give a couple like quick pointers. One of them is that form where you're gathering the information of who these people are. It's better that it's really, really short than that it's long. Do you want a lot of information about the person? Absolutely you do. But the way to do it is to make it a multi-step process. What we do is we'll just ask for the bare minimum information at the beginning. Like what's your phone number and your property address? That's what we need to call this a lead. Do I want to know your name? Do I want to know your email address? Do I want to know how quickly you want to sell it? Yes. But those are things that I'm then going to introduce to you with questions after you fill out that first form, because then I at least have your lead, I at least have your information. We'll find a better conversion rate with that. So that's what you want, like front and center on the page. You want whatever action this person needs to take for this to be valuable to you right there. We call it above the fold. Like you don't want to have to scroll down to find this. It's going to be right there at the very top of the page, which I know sounds simple, but a lot of people don't do it. And outside of that, the other tip is just testing. Like you should be always split testing different variants here at the landing page and just seeing what works better. There's tons of softwares that you can use to do this, and we find that that's really effective. So that's thing number one, is you have to make sure in this industry you pay on average about $50 for a click. You got to make sure that those clicks are converting at a really high rate into leads, because if they're not converting at a high rate into leads, then you can leave a lot of money on the table. The other thing is go ahead.
Before you move on from that,
yeah,
off the top of your head, and I know this is industry specific, right? Mm-hmm. But on the top of your head, what's a decent conversion rate at that first level of the funnel? Like, what would you look at and say, hot trash? Or what would you look at that and say, okay, that's actually really good. Like, I really think if you're in that ballpark, things are actually probably going fairly well for you.
In this industry, 17.5% is our benchmark for landing page conversion rate. That means that 17.5% of the people who land on your landing page should convert from Google search traffic. Now, here's the thing, it does vary a lot. We have clients at 10%, we have clients at 35%. Like there's this bell curve that sort of centers around that 17.5%. And I don't think we're like doing a horrible job for our clients that are at 10%. And we're doing a super great job for our clients at 35%. A lot of times it can depend on your market. And what it really depends on is the kind of traffic you're driving to the page too. Because let's just say I was running like social ads on Facebook and I was getting a 17.5% conversion rate. I'd be like over the moon. For that, more like 2% is really normal. Because there's a landing page there, but there's also the quality of traffic you're driving. And the quality of traffic you're driving is a really big component of your conversion rate. So I'd say like it's a nuanced enough thing that you want an expert to look at like specific circumstance. Because I've talked to people that have like a 5% conversion rate overall, but I look and half their traffic's being driven by a junk campaign. And really they're like a 20% conversion rate on the normal traffic. Well, we just went from thinking the landing page is the problem to realizing our landing page is performing pretty well. And our problem is that we're spending half our money on this campaign producing junk traffic. So it's nothing in marketing is easy enough to just say, look, if it's this, then this. But yeah, 17.5 is like middle of the bell curve. Like everything is looking pretty good. Which, by the way, in this industry, like that's normal, at least for us. But we have relatively optimized landing pages and traffic and all that kind of stuff. But in a lot of industries, that number is way lower. So we're definitely in an industry that has a really high conversion rate just by nature. Because you'll have people come from out of the industry and they'll look at a 5% conversion rate and say, wow, you guys are killing it at 5%. But we know in this industry that 5% is really bad.
Yeah, I could see that. For example, at Bedrock, we help people like find, vet, and buy rental real estate. Mm-hmm. And I can see that my conversion rates are way the crap lower. Like people, passive real estate investment, right? That is someone whose intent is way murkier than how do I sell my house for cash. That is like lightning clearer intent than what I'm getting on my intent searches, like inflation assets to invest in, not gold. Okay, maybe they're going to end up in single family residential, or maybe they're going to end up in a REIT or a syndication. So I can see that that can be way, way bigger.
So the second thing is bidding. And I'll explain this the best that I can, how bidding works. This will be like a quick crash course on how search marketing works in general with PPC. So to give you a little bit of context, every time you make a search in Google, those specific words that you search are recorded. It's all that information about you. So Google will have about you, usually about 10,000 or more data points per user. And that's going to include things like what is that search that you just made. It's also going to include things like what are the searches that you typically type in? What are the different websites you visit? If you ever go, like you can look with the different analytics tools and see what websites have Google's analytics tool on it. It's pretty much most websites, right? So Google has visibility into all this stuff that you do on the internet. And all that information is recorded. And then when you search, that package of information essentially is sent to all these Google Ads accounts saying, hey, we got Jeremy Watson here. He's searching for this. This is what his profile is like. He's this gender, this household income. He went to uhaul.com yesterday, all this information. And then all those different ad accounts put a bid in saying what they're willing to pay to show up for you. And then what you're going to see, if you made like a heavily commercial search that has a lot of advertisers on it, you're usually going to see at the very top of Google 4 ads. There's going to be position 1, 2, 3, 4. They have a little ad symbol next to them. And what that is basically the highest bidder, the second highest bidder, the third highest bidder, the fourth highest bidder for you. And then if you click on one of those ads, that's when that advertiser is going to have to pay for the advertising spot. That's the basics of how the auction works. And there's more. If anybody's a true Google Ads expert, you're going to be like, well, what about quality score and stuff? There's other components to it. It's not just bid, but bidding's like the most major, the most adjustable component to this. So the next question is, what's the right amount that you should bid to show up there? And I like to compare this to finding houses in real estate. So let's just say I want to buy properties to wholesale them. And I'm looking in a particular metro area for properties to wholesale. Different people could approach that problem different ways. One way would be, I say, well, as a wholesaler, I make money when people end up buying the house that I have under contract for lots of money, right? That's where I make the money. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to buy up all the most expensive properties in this zip code. Is that going to be a successful wholesaling strategy? Probably not, right? Because I'll find properties that are worth $2 million that I'm going to be buying for $2.5 million, right? And there's not really anything I can do with that. The other option is you say, well, the way wholesalers make money is they buy cheap, right? So I'm going to go into a market with a $500,000 median home price, and I'm going to go buy a bunch of properties for 200 grand. Am I going to make money doing that? Well, not necessarily, because that property I bought for 200 grand might be worth 150 because it's a piece of junk, right? So how do you make money as a wholesaler? It's in the gap between what it's worth and what you pay. And how do you determine that? You have to underwrite the deal specifically. You have to understand this property and this zip code with this many bedrooms, bathrooms, condition, all that stuff together, what is it worth? So people do the same stuff when they go into Google PPC, is they're trying to figure out what keywords they're going to bid on. They're going to try to figure out how much to bid. And they're just like, oh, I'll just take all the best keywords and then I'll just bid the most. That doesn't work. Or this is what agencies do all the time. They're just like, well, we're just going to get tons of traffic, right? So they start finding like, what are some keywords that are in our box that we want, but let's find the cheap ones. They cost less per click. We can buy more clicks that way. Yet they're buying clicks that are worth $5 and they're paying $10 for it, right? The game is whether I'm buying a click that's worth $10 and I'm buying it for $5, or it's worth $10,000 and I'm buying it for $5,000. I just got to be buying at a discount, right? And what that comes down to is I have to be underwriting that. So the way that works is you have to build a really smart bid strategy where when Jeremy Watson searches on Google and all this packaged up data about who you are and what you searched gets sent over to my Google Ads account, I'm going to be able to underwrite that. And I'm going to be able to predict what the likelihood is that Jeremy Watson sells his house to me. And if he does sell his house to me, how much money I'm going to make from that. And then based on all that, we predict it, we send in a bid according to that value. And then that's how you make sure you make money from this stuff and you don't pay too much, because you set the bids, but you have to make sure you're setting the bids based on the value of the thing that you're working. And there's a lot of different stuff that you could do with that. All that it comes down to, though, is you have to be gathering the right data that's predictive of the quality of your leads, and you have to be feeding that information to Google so that it can get smarter and smarter and it can understand what an ideal customer looks like to you. So that's the number one thing that we found to be really effective across our clients, is we do a really good job of basically solving that problem of how do we know better than what anybody else knows how much this click is worth, and because we know what the click is worth, we pay the right amount. And if you're always buying clicks that are worth $10 and you're buying them for $2, or worth $100 buying them for $20, or worth $1,000 buying them for $200, then you always have a return on investment. It's all just about knowing what it's worth and then paying the right amount.
Yeah, we've ran into that at Bedrock because our product is a vaguer ask, like a vaguer intention. Every major firm that we've ever hired to run PPC ads, and we've done that. We've spent at least $40,000 on PPC ads over the years. But every single company comes back to us after time and they're like, here's what you need to do. Number one, $10,000 a month isn't going to cut it. You need to prepare yourself. You need to brace yourself to run $20,000 to $40,000 of ads a month for the next year and a half. before we're able to figure out how to really value this correctly. So I think that's the ask a lot of people get when they're considering PPC. They get asked for this substantial budget for this enormous amount of time to kind of dial in the ask and dial in that. How do you guys approach that? Or is your approach really effective just because you're saying, hey, we really only market for one thing. We market for motivated sellers. The fact that you've dialed in your motivated seller, like what you're actually looking for down to the very, 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 very small thing? Or is your specialty, hey, we work with whoever and we can, through our process, dial in whoever is asked to this thing? Which side of that specialty, or is it a little bit of both?
It's definitely specialty. So I'll describe how this works. And I see why other people told you that. Because basically what they're looking for is like, we have to gather enough data
Yep.
to be able to run these campaigns really well. Because data is like the currency of marketing. Like every single dollar you spend on marketing should have two goals. Number one, gather data that helps us do better marketing tomorrow. And then number two, get us results. A lot of people think about number two, they don't think about number one. They don't realize number one's actually more valuable than number two, especially in the world that we're going to that's really AI driven. AI relies on data. Like you take ChatGPT and you don't feed it the entire internet to be its training data, and it's just a dumb algorithm that doesn't know anything. The advertising algorithms work exactly the same way. So the way that we work, I'll tell you a simple truth that most people agree with. Whoever spends the most money on marketing gets the best results. A lot of people believe that to be true. What they think, if they don't know a lot about marketing, what they assume to be true because of that is it's probably because, let's just say you go to Google with 50 grand a month and I go to Google with 10 grand a month. Google is going to give you the better leads because you're the higher paying client. Or, maybe you're getting some type of bulk discount. If you buy 50 grand a month worth, you're really getting 70 grand a month worth of it because they're giving you a discount because you're buying at volume or something like that. And that's what people assume about Google and how it works. And if anything, it actually works like the inverse of that. You get a diminished return because you're spending more money. But here's what is true. More spend equals more data. More data equals better results. So people just skip that. They say more spend equals better results. But why does more spend equals better results? It's because more spend equals more data and more data equals better results. So what we do is we shortcut that and we say, is there some way that we could have more data without having more spend? And the way to get more data without having more spend is you aggregate data. So all this stuff I'm talking about, like to have the predictive algorithms so that it knows the value of the click and stuff like that, the kind of thing that they're telling you got to spend 18 months of 20 to 40 grand in order to train this algorithm. If that company, in theory, had 200 other clients just like you that they were working with right now that were doing that, would they need to do that? Not necessarily. So that's our game, is basically we aggregate the data from all of our other clients. I could show you inside our Google Ads account, you can basically see a little ticker there showing over $30 million worth of ad spend data that has been run through this one single algorithm that we manage. It's called a bid strategy. And anytime any of our clients gets a deal from any market in the United States, it feeds that algorithm about what is producing value in general in this real estate investing market. So because of that, our clients have a significantly shorter ramp up. You don't have that super long time to gather all that data where you're kind of shooting in the dark, and it helps. And that's why I recommend that anybody work with a niche agency in their space if they can. Companies like yours are put in a tricky position because there is no such thing as like a niche agency that works with a bunch of different bedrocks, because there aren't a bunch of different bedrocks, right? You're a really unique company. So you kind of are tasked with the responsibility of paving your way, gathering your own data. But if there was a way, I'm in the same boat, by the way. I'm a marketing agency that works with real estate investors. I have like 3 competitors. Do you think there's some marketing company out there that has all the data from all my 3 competitors and can help me? Probably not. So in my case, I got to pave the way for my own company. But what my company does is we have the pre-paved way for our clients. And that's the better way to do it if you can.
No, and that's fascinating, because I think the original thesis that I would come in with my head in this conversation would be Brandon and the Bateman Collective know marketing better than me. So Brandon and the Bateman Collective understand how the secret sauce is made. But I think there is a huge piece of understanding that has to be had, which is the Bateman Collective specialize in their marketing niche and have a ass ton of data on their niche that if I need their service, I can plug into all of that data and all of that expertise. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right that if I'm in the marketing space and I'm considering PPC, the question of does this firm specialize in for companies like mine and have intelligent minds behind the scenes making sure that the data that worked for other companies like mine will also work for mine. I think that is a crucial question that is so hard to get to the starting blocks on that question, right? Like the question everyone asks when they're out looking for a PPC marketing firm is, what do I need to do? Right? What do I need to do? And the real question you need to be asking is, what marketing companies are out there that work with other companies like mine that already have data that know how to find clients like my clients? Is that right? Am I hearing this right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Because we assume that a good marketer is a good marketer, right? And a better marketer should know. All the best marketers I know, they're just good with data. That's all it comes down to, right? So it's like, well, do I know the best keywords for you? No. Do I know how to find it out through experimentation? That's the key thing, right? If I already have that data, that's even better. But if I had it, it'd only be through experimentation because I've been able to figure it out over time, right? So if you can shortcut that learning curve, that's really good. But yeah, I think once upon a time when media buying was really simple and it's just like, I'll just buy the TV spot and the creative was everything, then you're kind of looking for these like ivory tower marketers that know everything and know you should use that word, not that word. But what I've learned, if I've learned anything about marketing over the past like 7 or 8 years, is it's just, you never know what's going to work. We split test our landing pages for our clients. And do you know how often the variant that I'm excited about that I think is going to work is the one that actually works? It's about 50% of the time. What that tells you about how good I am at guessing, I'm equally as good as flipping a coin at telling you which marketing message is going to work really well. And you just need to have the data. One of the things that we talk about internally is we say there's 3 stages of marketer. Stage 1 marketer is basically says, I'm curious, I'm open to a lot, I want to be a really good marketer, but I have a lot to learn. A stage 2 marketer is like, I know exactly how to get results. I've figured it out. I've gotten these great results over this amount of time. I know how to get results faster than other people. And then a stage 3 marketer is like, I'm curious. I'm open to insights. I'm humble. I don't know what works. It's just this phase that everybody goes through where you start out and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then at some point you're like, I know what I'm doing. And then if you know what you're doing, it's only because you haven't been doing it long enough to know how much you suck at what you're doing. And then you arrive where everybody basically ends up, which is this place of just not necessarily being the guy that knows everything, but being the guy who knows how to figure it out. Yep. And that's where the best marketers are.
That's the same with science. Like every scientific topic, I wrote a thing the other day on my Facebook, and I was like, we don't know how gravity works. We just don't know how it works. The science is so split on the subject. There's a theory that there's a mesh, like a space-time mesh behind the galaxy that we can't see, and that objects with mass create like weight in that mess and pull things to them because it's like a blanket. But then there's other people who are like, no, that's not how it works for these 100 reasons. That can't be how it works. It's like what we know is that when we drop something, it falls, and in space, it doesn't. But beyond that, like as soon as you get past that one thing that we do know, everything past that point is like an educated guess at best. And the smartest people on the planet have been working on this for 300 years, and they're like, oh. So that's what I have found is the people who speak in absolute terms never are the experts in the field. The people who are like, well, we think it might be this, but under scrutiny it doesn't look like that, but really it could be that. But we would have to, like, people who really are experts are like the least confident people you'll ever meet, but they also have the most interesting conversations you'll ever meet because they do know what we do know, and they do know that what we know isn't everything. And I love that. I love that about any conversation. When I find someone who's willing to admit the amount they don't know, but that is a certain level of expertise because you don't know, like the Dunning-Kruger effect. People who know nothing about it think they know everything about it because they don't know enough to realize they don't know everything about it, which is fascinating. All right, so I love the idea of you need to find a marketing firm who specializes in what you specialize in. How would someone do that? Let's say on the pod right now, listening, if someone was saying, hey, I want to grow my Turo fleet through PPC, or I want to go to private car rental through PPC. How would you recommend they find a firm that does that? Would you just Google it, like marketing for private car rental?
I guess that's where I'd start. So there's lots of different ways that you can find out. How would you find out? If you're in our industry, it's our job to be found by you, right?
Got it.
Ideally, they're doing their own marketing. Although what you will find is there are a lot of marketing companies that have I think it's called the cobbler's shoes dilemma, where they do a lot of marketing for a lot of companies, but they're not very good at marketing themselves. You'll find that all over the place. But yeah, I would Google around, ask around what companies are other people working with. Anytime I think you can get in a group of people in your industry who are doing the kind of things that you're doing, that's always a huge win, because you can learn stuff like this, like who are the different vendors that you can work with for different stuff. My advice honestly is split depending on what bucket you fall into. One bucket is you're in a specialized niche agency industry where you can find companies that you can work with who do this for hundreds of other businesses just like yours. I would go with those businesses if you can find those businesses. In a lot of cases though, I'd say more companies than not don't fall in one of those nice, neat niche industries. And if that's true, then you just need to find an agency that's really good. Or another option that I'm really fond of is freelancers are really good in that case. Now, would I recommend a real estate investor go work with a freelancer to run their ads? No, because that person's going to be starting from square one because they don't have a lot of data in the industry, right? But would I recommend a Jeremy Watson go find a freelancer who can run ads for Bedrock for them? Absolutely, because usually you're going to have more control. Because people think it's agencies that really create the results for them. It's really people within the agencies that create the results, especially for a generalist agency. So you could have this agency that says, look at all these case studies, look at all these companies that we did these great things for. You don't know the people who did those things are the ones that are actually going to be working with you.
Correct.
Versus with a freelancer, you can find that person who has that history, who's done those things. And a lot of people get caught up in agencies where they're their lowest paying client, and so they get the fresh intern the agency just hired or to manage their account or something like that. And it's like, now you're paying a lot of money for something that's not really good. So my advice for a lot of people that would work with more of a generalist company, if it's for a niche thing like PPC advertising, if you need more like full service marketing, that's a different thing because no one person can do that job. But if you're just looking for a PPC media buyer, for example, find a good freelancer. And they can usually do a pretty good job, and usually it costs less than an agency does, and usually the service can be a little bit better, assuming you do a good job of vetting that freelancer. If you're not sure of how to find that freelancer, it's never a bad idea to go on LinkedIn, find top advertising agencies, find their top people who have been with them for a long time, and ask those people who they know, and you can usually get something. Yeah.
Slide into the DMs of the people who work at that agency and prepare a brief snippet of, hey, here's what I need, here's what I'm looking for. Do you know anyone who can help me with this? And then network from there.
Yeah, stuff like that is good. Because freelancers, they're not going to be like marketing that they do a lot. They're going to be taking 6 clients. You'll even find in some agencies, sometimes you can find like this agency that has $15,000 a month management fees on average, and their number one person out of 200 people moonlights on the side for $1,500 a month, you know?
Yeah.
So you'll find sometimes really good talent for way less than what you'd pay. I like that route specifically of freelancers just because they'll give more time and attention to your campaigns, unless you're in a niche. And if you're in a niche, I think it's a completely different story because if you look at what Bateman Collective is built to deliver, it's built like a machine to deliver like the right data to optimize for accounts and stuff like that. And you know, you could take an employee from Bateman Collective and go have them build you out of a real estate ads campaign, but if it's not plugged into our data, it would be not nearly as good, right? So a lot of what you pay for is the data. But for Jeremy Watson, that doesn't matter because nobody has the data you're looking for.
Yeah, no, it feels good. It feels good. I honestly just backed away. Every time I got that advice, you need to just set aside $500,000 for the next 18 months. I was like, I'm going to do something else. We're just going to do a ton of networking. We're going to do some YouTube stuff. We're going to do some direct-to-consumer, some cold emails. We'll build some intelligent lists. For us, it was just like, hey, $500,000 spent that way with that little confidence that we're going to, hey, we just spent $40,000 and it brought back a whopping nothing. Right. And so do I really feel like spending 11 times that for a whopping maybe something? And so I would say that's great advice. Like a specialist agency, if you're in an industry that creates that, and a freelancer if you're not. And your advice to like how to find a freelancer. Your advice wouldn't be go on Fiverr and just start.
Scared. I'd be really scared of Fiverr. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize about agencies is just like any other business, they have a lot of people who work in the same roles, and those people are ranked on how well they do in those roles. So you can ask around, right? You find a big agency, oftentimes the measure is client retention. They measure client revenue retention, right? Because if somebody's a really good media buyer, their clients stay with them longer. If they're a really bad media buyer, the clients stay with them shorter, right? And of course there's other components there, like are they a good communicator? Are they good at building strategy? All those kinds of things, right? So you can just go find all these companies, they have leaderboards, right? You can find the people who are really good within the companies and the people who aren't as good. Versus you just go work with a random company, you'll just get whatever you get. It may not be as good. I would recommend doing something like that if you're going to find a media buyer. But like you said, a lot of people, they start out just by networking, all that kind of stuff. Look, I'm in a similar position to you. I didn't actually run any ads for my own business until we were past like the $3 million a year revenue mark. And then we started promoting more. I've got a director over marketing, got a marketing team. I think I spent like $2 million between marketing and sales last year, which for me was the most I'd ever spent. And it works fine, but it's a progression, right? Because I didn't spend very much on that at all for a long time. And because you do the stuff that's cheap or free until you build the runway for that. It's a tough thing when you look at your business in several years, has all these core essential functions. And if everything were perfect, you could just hire for all those things right now to get there, but you're not going to be able to. So you kind of mix and match until you can get all the way there. And the advice I gave is largely for someone in that situation. If you're like a $100 million a year company, you might actually benefit from working with the big agency because you might have more requirement than can be filled by a smaller agency because you'll need multiple minds on the project. I'd say there's definitely a size where having an agency makes more sense. And then there's also a size where even in-house makes sense, right? Where you just hire your unpaid ads team in-house. So it's not blanket advice for everybody, but it's a good start.
No, I think that's what I've found based on my trying to see if there are the kind of niche agencies for me. It feels like in real estate investment, most of them are hiring in-house. Most of them have a guy to 3 or 4 guys just doing all of their marketing in-house, and they gather all their in-house data and they keep all their data in-house. That's what I've seen over and over. Most of the people who are really succeeding in this space or who are big or finding PPC success, they have spent the $500,000 over 18 months. And then they've done that path, which is an expensive path. And candidly, I've never wanted to grow that fast because I offer a much more robust back end than most companies. Most companies just say, hey, here's your house, good luck. Where Bedrock's like, we handle the LLC setup and compliance and bookkeeping and administration and property management setup and oversight, and then we report back to clients. And so for us, there's a lot more whack-a-mole that goes on with our company than any other of our competitors because we're doing more of the back end and because we answer to the client. For the first 5-6 years of Bedrock being around, we were just putting out fires constantly, trying to figure out how to deliver a product out of the kitchen that didn't taste like crap. Luckily, we've gotten past that, but even if I had spent the other $500,000, right, the moment someone wanted me to buy 50, 60, 70 houses a month, I would have been like, oh, okay, screw it. There's no way to deliver this product. It's all going to come out of the kitchen burned. You're going to end up eating frog, and you thought you ordered a hamburger. Like, it is going to be the worst experience. And so it's also that question of size and fit. All right, so we're about at the end of the time that I said I'd keep you. Number one, I appreciate the crap out of this, Brandon. Like, this has been a super cool conversation, both on the different buckets you can kind of fall into, finding a specialist, not just going to Fiverr. Such good advice. I love the advice. How do people find you? If they're listening to this and saying, hey, I am in the space that Brandon seems to be talking to, how do people find you?
If you want to work with Bateman Collective specifically, go to batemancollective.com. It's pretty easy. Right on the page, you scroll down to the bottom, there's a place to fill out a form and you can book a call directly with an expert on my team. Also, it's worth looking into even if you don't want like this right now. We have all kinds of resources on the website that you'll find pretty easily, like training videos on PPC so you can better understand it. We have good benchmarking tools like an industry report where you can put in the data of your business, how many deals are you doing, what kind of market are you in, your close rate on leads, your marketing numbers and stuff like that, and will help you understand how does your business differ from the average real estate investor, which is really fascinating because you could start to see like, I have a lower net margin than my peers. Or my peers are doing more deals than me, or for all marketing channels, I'm closing deals at the same rate as other investors, but I have half the close rate on my cold call leads compared to the average real estate investor. Could there be something in that marketing channel that I'm not doing right from a lead quality standpoint? So there's a lot of insights there. We do a lot of marketing in the space, but we also do a lot just to help real estate investors in general. So there's a lot of resources there for you.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I can personally attest because I went to your website, I saw you, I was like, I remember exactly why I wanted this guy on the podcast. And then I got your Facebook ads almost instantaneously because I had Googled you. Then I was like, hey, he found me. His marketing methodologies found me as soon as I went to the website. So I can say that they at least know how to get you once you've Googled them, and you'll be able to find them, no questions asked, if you look for them. All right, is there any other parting wisdom you want to give?
No, that's all. Thank you for the chat, Jeremy.
Hey, Brandon, it was so lovely to chat with you. Well, we'll have to chat in the future and find me a good freelancer. It seems like that's the best advice I can get is how do I find a good freelancer? You should offer a paid service to help vet freelancers because that seems freaking terrifying to me.
That's
So,
the thing is if you, there are good ones out there, but there's also plenty of not good.
and how would a layman vet such a thing? In those moments when you're just in it by yourself, some perspective is really useful and some experience. Some people have given me some great advice along the way. I love so much. I cannot even describe how much I love talking to an expert and having you say, hey, here's some really good advice for my business, because I love giving advice to other people's business. And I think people watch this channel fundamentally because they get some value out of it. And I don't sell any courses, but I really appreciate your time, Brandon, and your expertise. And if anyone ever comes to you from me, I hope that you guys have a wonderful relationship. Thank you so much for joining me today, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy.
All right, the next video I would watch if you're interested in this stuff, in business and how businesses work, how businesses grow, optimization, how the world is going to affect you in business. The next video I would watch is Trump's Tariffs Explained. The day after Liberation Day of 2025, I went on and talked about a bandage company that I own and how Trump's tariffs are going to impact that. It has now been almost a year, and man, I called it. I batted a damn 1,000 on that video. If you want to know other complicated things around business from my experience building 17 to 25 companies, that's the next video I would watch. Batted 1,000 on that. Called my shot, did a full-blown Babe Ruth. Hope you enjoy. Bye-bye.